Well, first of all, in terms of the volumes, what we're seeing is postal services throughout the world. There's the same trend. Letter volumes are declining and parcel volumes are driven by e-commerce increasing. What's happened with the pandemic is we've almost jumped 2 years ahead. We're now seeing the volumes in parcels growth that we didn't expect to see for another 2 years. So that puts a huge pressure. It means we've got to massively increase our investment in digital to be able to track and trace and to have more options and and the key to delivering parcels is deliver it once. You don't want to be going back to houses. You want to make it easy for customers to pick up. You want to give them all the options digitally. But the amazing thing about postal is with every digital transaction there's usually a physical transaction. We've had to build out our automation very fast, so we're putting in new automation for the smaller parcels. We've already got our automation for the larger parcels, and having to get that investment up front. So it's really flat out. But in terms of a business challenge, it's a really good challenge to have compared to many businesses, travel businesses, hospitality, which are suffering terribly. We've got to work harder to make sure we can deliver the amount of trade that's coming through, so we're not over trading. So it's actually a very good problem to have. I think the other thing that's happened, of course, is we're all having to get used to new ways of working. Most of our people are working remotely. Our front lines, of course, in postal tend to, first of all, very widely distributed. A lot of the work is outdoors, and thankfully, we've had cases of COVID, but no cases of company COVID, and it's probably the nature of that dispersal of how people work. But coping with the new ways of working while also having to invest very heavily in digital, invest very heavily in automation, all of that is driving change. The final piece of change we have is actually in the last mile, is making sure that we get more vans on the road, and that all ties into what prior to the pandemic was certainly our big trend, which is around sustainability, electric vehicles, and here in Dublin we're the first city in the world with zero emission postal deliveries because all our vehicles are electric. So the amount of change is monumental, but it's a challenge that people like having in business.
About the competitive landscape, because we've seen a huge rally in some of the big technology names, as many investors think these particular stocks and companies are benefiting because of COVID-19. But what we saw in the height of lockdown, some of the services were just unable to take on new customers, so they almost closed the door to fresh business. What's the competitive landscape like now as you've implemented new measures and tried to catch up? Do you think you've closed the gap, or has it widened again because of services like Amazon with huge balance sheets able to hire more workers and quickly accelerate some of their operations to catch up with the demand?
So firstly, we're a very big, Amazon is one of our biggest customers, so we deliver an awful lot for Amazon. Amazon setting up their own delivery is to some degree competitive, but actually it's complementary because there's so much volume coming through that Amazon is taking up the whole pipeline, and we need to expand the pipeline, but we also need to clear it somewhat. So there's actually so much volume coming through that it's quite possible to work in a complementary way. Absolutely, postal is closing the gap because postal has moved from an old world of fixed route deliveries for letters to dynamic route delivery for parcels. And actually, I think what and Amazon would say this about on Post. We are fantastically good at delivering, probably in areas where it's not so easy for Amazon to deliver. We are fantastically efficient in terms of taking through huge volumes. And somebody like Amazon, or indeed any of the e-tailers, what they say first of all is develop the capacity. You've got to have the capacity, and frankly there wouldn't be the capacity without the postal services. Where postal has been held back in the past is it's been too tied to an old way of doing things. So actually our investment in technology, which would see now, for example, capital expenditure heading up towards 25 to 30% on the digital side of the business, whereas that would have been 10% 2 years ago. And the reason why it's that is to make sure that in technology terms we can absolutely just be part of a seamless supply chain for e-tailers. So there's plenty of room with the amount of volume coming through for people to play in that supply chain. And I think postal has a really, really strong future. And I think the pandemic has shown the value of a really strong workforce united by decent working conditions, a workforce that values their company and is valued by their company. I think that's something else that has been a shift in the pandemic, slightly shift away from gig economy into something that's a bit more sustainable.